Hi ladies, and welcome to week 2 on ethical principles in advocacy. I'm going to apologize in advance if you can hear my neighbor mowing his lawn. It's one of those beautiful days here at the end of August, and I absolutely refuse to put the air conditioning on because it's just beautiful out. Our competencies this week are to demonstrate and advocate professionalism and accountability for assessing nursing management problems. Well, those are big words for me to say right now. The student will identify a current ethical management problem in the work environment, assess the factors contributing to management function and dysfunction, plan and implement solutions to solve the leadership problem utilizing ethical principles, problem solving, and evaluation, and advocate for professionalism and accountability to enhance the climate in nurse practice environments. Our discussion question today says that there's an ethical problem involving an impaired nurse or an impaired employee on your unit. Although nurse manager suspects there is a problem, the manager has decided to wait to assess the factors and evidence related to the situation. Discuss the best possible action you should take to address and solve this problem. So I want you to take a minute to think too, how often do you witness an ethical issue on your unit? I'm talking about ethical issues that involve more than just patient issues like DNRs and comfort care, things like that. I'm talking about ethical issues that involve the delivery of safe and competent care. So things like diversion, things like staffing. Is your staffing level adequate to take care of the patients? Things like lack of collaboration between peers or disciplines. Any disrespectful communication, or as we've heard before, bullying or horizontal violence. Any issues involving informed consent, where you believe that a patient really wasn't informed or is not able to give consent. Any issues in triaging, patients that you think should not be on your unit. And issues with recruitment and retention of healthcare workers. Do you think sometimes that healthcare workers, physicians, and nurses are there just because they need a body in that place? Or any issues in whistleblowing? So think about those kind of things. I'm going to recommend again all of the readings. I particularly think Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 have a lot to do with our our assignments for this week. But I also included many articles on an impaired nurse, including a video, and also a link to SARP, which is the Substance Abuse Rehabilitation Program for Nurses in Massachusetts. So this is an alternative to discipline. It's non-punitive, and nurses can go through this 5-year voluntary abstinent-based program, and it's designed to get them back into the nursing workforce. Our assignment this week is to review the case studies in Chapter 4, and they are the learning exercises titled Family Values, and or A Nagging Uneasiness. You're to choose one of the case studies and analyze it as directed in the case studies directions. So at the end of both case studies, there are some questions there. Also, we want you to describe the elements of professional liability with explanations. And as a nurse leader, assess, plan, and implement solutions to solve the problem and evaluate the results. We want you to advocate for professionalism and accountability to enhance the climate in nursing practice environments. So again, use care, because depending on which edition of the text you have, the learning exercises may not be labeled 4.3 and 4.4 as they say in your description to the assignment. I have had students in the past write this paper on the wrong learning exercise. So again, choose the learning exercise, either the one titled Family Values or the one titled A Nagging Uneasiness. While you're doing these case studies, you can think about the different ethical frameworks. Ethical frameworks guide individuals in solving dilemmas. They don't solve them, but they assist us in clarifying our own personal values and beliefs. Our textbook does a very good job of describing utilitarian, rights-based, duty-based, and intuitionist. You can also include principles of ethical reasoning when you're talking about your case study, which are autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, paternalism, utility, justice, veracity, fidelity, and confidentiality. And again, these are described very well in your textbook. Thinking about ethical principles, I want to ask you if, so all of you know that the American Nurses Association has a code of ethics and personal standards, and they are listed in our textbook, and they are listed on the ANA's website. How many of you had read these prior to pursuing your degree? And actually, how many of you, even knew that there was an American Nurses Association code of ethics that we were all supposed to be following? Does your facility have them available anywhere? Are they posted anywhere on the units, like on a wall, or are they in any of your policies? And secondly, have any of you ever taken part in an ethical decision-making process with the aid of your facility's ethics committee? Have you ever involved the ethics committee either over a patient problem or a peer problem or any other issue? One of the things that I recommend if you have an interest in ethics is years ago when I was a staff nurse at Mercy Medical Center and I worked on the respiratory unit, which we had a lot of chronically ill patients, and I sat on the ethics committee, and it was really extremely interesting, and if you really like to think, I would recommend it. So when we think about integrity, integrity is doing the right thing, even knowing that nobody's going to know if you did it or not. Okay? So integrity is ethics. Quickly, I just want to tell you a little bit about this book. It's called 5 Days at Memorial. It's by Sherry Fink, who was actually won a Pulitzer Prize for it, and she was a social worker. A reporter that got involved with this case. So in 2015, when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, one of the things that we didn't hear about on all of the news channels was what was happening at different hospitals. Well, here at this Memorial Hospital, it was flooded. The electricity went out. The staff could not go anywhere. The families could not come in. The patients could not go out. Family members could not come in, and doctors and nurses worked tirelessly in this humid conditions without electricity to care for their patients. Day after day, they waited in this building for rescue, either by helicopter or by boat. And at one point, controversially, the staff adopted a triage system which saw those with do not resuscitate orders placed last in the list for evacuation. According to prosecutors, some medical staff actually decided to hasten the death of the most critical patients with lethal injections of morphine. I'll get to the chase. At the end, they tried to press murder charges against these folks, but a special grand jury refused to indict the 3 staff members that were involved, so these charges were dropped. It is an extremely powerful book to read, and there are all kinds of morality and ethical questions surrounding what actually happened here. Just want to show you here is the area flooded. Here's one of the boats that could save some patients, but just think patients who were being bagged or on vents could not get on an airboat. Here's the way some of the patients were treated out on the roof because it was too hot inside, and down on the bottom you can see how one of the patients was identified as a DNR with magic marker on his shirt. Here is a makeshift morgue in the chapel. So it's a good read. It's, as I said, kind of hard to read, but as we get towards our future, looks like we need to be more involved and more aware of disaster preparedness. It's something that I think we all need to know. Lastly, and to not go on too long, I just wanted to mention that in some of our readings, we also had some information on emotional intelligence. If you haven't read much about emotional intelligence, I would recommend it. There's some skills of emotional intelligence, and then also malpractice. Have any of you or anyone you know ever had to take part in a deposition? Depositions can be very scary. I myself was deposed years ago, and again, one more reason to recommend excellent documentation, because 5 years down the line, when you are actually deposed, you're not going to remember much about that case. And then advocacy. All nurses are advocates. It's just what we do. And thank you for listening, and I'll see you online.